So let's now look at what does it mean for something to be in the curriculum. There's been a lot of talk about this. This is one of the pushbacks that often gets brought up by educators or by different people supporting the idea of trans or gender ideology education in schools, that it's not in the curriculum until here, by the way, specifically in Ontario. Well, it's not in the curriculum. You need to go read the curriculum. And in the curriculum, it states that this needs to be taught in grade 8. That's true. That gets cut up. It's not done until grade 8 in the curriculum. But what does that actually mean? I have been privileged enough to get my hands on a whole bunch of legal documents from 2019. So Doug Ford ran on a campaign to repeal the Catherine Wynne sex ed curriculum. I think it was a 2015 sex ed curriculum. He wanted to repeal that and create a new one. And then the ETFO, who we've covered on this channel before, in fact, I've done it with you, Jess, the Elementary Teachers Federation of Ontario, which is a teachers union, they took the Doug Ford government to court with the Canadian Civil Liberties Union. And they were saying that this infringed on students' human rights to repeal this 2015. Well, it's the health curriculum. So we don't actually have a sex ed curriculum in Ontario, but it's included in the health curriculum. There are affidavits and factums and all kinds of things pertaining to the case. And one of them is an affidavit from a man called Martyn Beckett. Now, Martyn Beckett, I don't know if you know this, Jess, he's also from DDSB.
Oh, okay.
Let's bring him up here. Yeah, so he originally started in Whitby. He originally started his career in Whitby, in the Durham District School Board, which is your area. And he moved up to the Ministry of Education in 2016 to become the Assistant Deputy Minister of Education. So he's a representative for the Doug Ford government in this case as the Ministry of Education. And this is an affidavit that Martyn Beckett gave about what the health curriculum is and what the new, we'll call it the sex ed curriculum. We know what we mean, it's health. But anyway, so in this document, he's stating what things like in the curriculum mean, like what the expectations are of teachers. So it says on number 24, learning expectations describe the knowledge and skills that students are expected to learn by the end of a grade or course in a subject matter. Okay. In other words, they describe what the students learn. Learning expectations are mandatory, and courses of study and classroom programs in each grade must be developed from these learning expectations. We're starting off explaining that this is the expectation that the kids need to learn by a certain grade. More deeply, what does that mean? Now, point 46 in this document says, as with other subjects, teachers are free to answer questions or discuss matters in the HPE curriculum, so the health and physical education curriculum, that relates to topics taught in higher grades. When grade 5 students learn to describe the process of menstruation and spermatogenesis, they may well discuss major parts of the reproductive system and their function, which is part of the grade 6 expectation. Nothing in the curriculum prohibits this. Let me explain what that means. What that's telling you, if we ignore the specifics of menstruation and all the specific topics, what that's telling us is that you can teach any part of this curriculum in any grade, but you cannot test them until the grade that they're specified in that curriculum.
That's how we've ended up with classrooms being taught the way they are today, is teachers are doing those things.
Right. Well, it goes on to say that the HPE learning expectations are designed so that teachers have substantial discretion in deciding how and when to teach these topics. So teachers, they have all the independence in the world based on their professional judgment to teach whatever they feel it is appropriate. And then further on, it says in number 30, Ontario does not require teachers to use any particular teaching resources or strategies. Instead, teachers are left to exercise their professional judgment to choose the resources they believe will help their students achieve learning expectations. So overall, we'll go into a few more things after this, but overall, what this is telling us is that what kids learn is in the curriculum, right? So that it tells you by what grade 8 they must be tested on that, which we'll go into more detail. Teachers have an enormous amount of lenience on their own professional judgments to choose which materials to use. And as we've seen, if people remember me talking about the Trans-Affirming Toolkit, which is a resource supported by a lot of the unions, they can use whatever resource they think is appropriate. So this was directly from Martyn Beckett, who's the representative of the government, saying that that's what the curriculum is. Now, there are other documents.
That's something that a lot of people miss, is that it's the expectation for the curriculum is that they're tested at that point, not taught at that point. And it is a big misunderstanding, because I don't think it's been fully explained to parents properly.
No, it hasn't. So I'm going to read a little bit more of this, but then I won't labor it too long after that, because I'm still getting my head around these documents to give a better representation. But again, this is a factum from the same case. Oh, let's go have a look at what they say in here. Okay, here we're getting a little bit more specific. So this factum is for the person responding in this, so the person giving the answers is Martyn Beckett. So this is from him, okay? So he says, the curriculum describes, in broad terms, the desired outcomes of the teaching and learning process. So this is the desired learning outcomes. That's what the curriculum describes. Ontario curriculum guidelines contain lists of expectations for each grade or course in each subject. These expectations describe the knowledge and skills that students are expected to learn by the end of the grade or course. So now we're getting to the brass tacks. He's telling you directly, in the curriculum means you are tested at that grade for that expectation, okay? And then again, he says, curriculum expectations are mandatory in that classroom programs must be designed so that the expectations for each grade are taught in those grades. So if the expectation is gender in grade 8, they'll teach it in grade 8. And the students are assessed and evaluated on that expectation in their own grade rather than some other grade. So they would be tested in grade 8, not in grade 6. For example, teachers may not design a classroom program for grade 5 students where the students are expected to learn and be evaluated and assessed on grade 6 expectations. So what I just said, you cannot test on an older grade or a higher grade, but you can teach it. You can teach the higher grade expectation at the lower grade. Although teachers may refer to grade 6 or higher expectations and content in teaching grade 5 program, they must nonetheless teach and assess students on the grade 5 expectations. We're repeating the same thing.
Yep.
In the curriculum just means the grade at which you're tested by it. So when you hear people pushing back and saying it's not in the curriculum, it's not the curriculum, do they understand what in the curriculum means?
I know I didn't for a long time, myself personally. I believed, like everybody else did, that those were the grades that it was to be taught in, not that that's the grade just to be tested in.
Yeah, well, I had no idea until I picked this up. I mean, I understood the dynamics of methodology. So when they talk about, the last one, I'll talk about this a little bit too. So when they talk about professional judgment and resources and things like that, that sounds really great on the surface because teachers are educated people. They should have the flexibility to do those things. The problem is that we know that Paulo Freire's methods are all over the education system, and it is very sneaky. They've also been given the permission to teach things at a higher expectation whenever they like, and to use their professional judgment about things like age appropriateness, which I haven't talked about yet, but is in there. They talk about it's up to the teachers to define age appropriate, right? And I've covered certainly on this channel about what the meaning of age appropriate means. It's no longer developmentally appropriate practice, which is what used to be done. I digress a little bit about age appropriateness. The last thing that I want to cover just for this topic, I will be going through this case over and over again, I'm sure, because I found a whole bunch of other things I don't have time to cover today in the few documents that I have read. But the last point for today that I want to talk about this in the curriculum, okay, is point 24. Teachers are free to answer questions and address topics that are not expressly referred to in the curriculum document in the course of teaching the curriculum. So again, if we think about gender, there are egregious things that are being shared with young people that won't be in the curriculum. And they're saying, but they're free to answer that. They're free to answer that as they see fit. Such what they call teachable moments are not prohibited. Sounds good. Teachable moments. We want that. There are some things that are going to be a teachable moment in the classroom. They are those magical moments when something comes up and you can cover a topic that wouldn't otherwise come up. the curriculum documents are not intended to include every possible question that could be considered in planning a classroom or gym activities. On the surface, sounds great, but we've seen how this plays out in our schools. So what we have is teachers have the professional judgment to decide whenever to bring up these topics. And we think about gender, that can be done as early as kindergarten, right? Age appropriateness is determined by the teacher themselves, usually means age presenting information in a way that's appealing to that age rather than appropriate for that developmental stage, right? We also have this concept of the teachable moment. The teachable moment, if you really think about that, this is, it allows for things like the Freirean generative theme. So if you think about classrooms that are, or schools that have all these flags everywhere, and, you know, there's just all this signaling of trans and queer ideology all over the place. Well, this teachable moment is a kid coming to and saying, what is that? Oh, what does that flag mean? Or what? So that generates the capacity for the teacher to have this magical teachable moment to then go talk about, you know, what pansexuality means to a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old, a 7-year-old, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's age appropriate because they're colorful.
One of our biggest complaints that we had to the board was the fact that they're saying that they're having these, oh goodness, I can't think of the word, like genuine open conversations with the students about things, yet anyway, when they're trying to say that they're organic, that's it, organic conversations. Yeah, I'm sorry, when the school is plastered up and down the halls with bulletin boards full of gender ideology and things like that, you can no longer state that it's an organic conversation. It's been endorsed by propaganda.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we have to, knowing the information that I know now, I read these documents in a very different light, and what's been allowed to happen over time. The ETFO is very happy about this. By the way, the case was resolved by the Doug Ford government basically giving ETFO everything they want so that they dropped the case and it would just go away. So they handed over, the Ford government handed over all the power of the Ministry of Education to put limits on the kinds of teaching methods. So if we think about highly ideological teaching methods such as using critical consciousness, using critical race theory, queer pedagogy, all of these critical praxis that you can use, that's not been stopped. They've been allowed to do that as they please. And the last document that I read that was the most explicit from Martyn Beckett, this is coming directly from the representative of the Ministry of Education under the Ford government telling you, yeah, we're totally happy with this. We want this. We're totally behind it. This is what we want. So I think we need to start thinking about, well, this is my understanding, is that people need to understand what the curriculum means. People need to understand that changing governments may or may not, well, probably won't change these facts. That my personal opinion is that we need to look at these unions and see how we can reduce some of their power there. But there's some other juicy stuff about this case, which I'm not going to talk about today, in terms of who the experts were used, or which experts were used by the ETFO. That's a whole other thing, which I hope to bring to you soon.